Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're taking something you literally do every single day and turning it into an absolute art form. We are talking about how to transform your basic daily routines into captivating, well-structured stories. Look, whether you're chatting with a colleague, catching up with a friend, or just practicing your English fluency, simply rattling off a list of facts about your day can feel, well, a bit dry. But if you use the right framework, and specifically if you master the sequence words that drive your story forward, you can turn a mundane Tuesday into a genuinely engaging narrative. So I want you to think about this question for just a second. What did you do today? Seriously, picture your own morning. When you first opened your eyes, what actually happened? What exact steps did you take before walking out the front door or logging onto your computer? If you're like most of us, your brain probably just generated this massive jumbled list of actions. Our goal today is to take that chaotic mental list and give it some real structure. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, sequencing your daily story. Then, choosing the right tenses, time and frequency adverbs, and linking ideas and verbs. Finally, we'll look at the perfect daily story and wrap up by fixing common storytelling mistakes. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, sequencing your daily story, or the skeleton of your narrative. Listen, without sequence words, your day is just a chaotic pile of random events. These words are your absolute framework, the real secret sauce of storytelling. You start your story with first. It signals the absolute beginning, right? First, I woke up at 7. Once you've got that starting point, you actually pull the story forward with words like then, next, and after that. Alternating these is what keeps your narrative sounding natural and dynamic, instead of sounding like some robotic checklist. Picture telling a friend, "Then I had a huge breakfast. Next, I rushed to work. After that, I met my colleagues." See how that flows? And when you're finally ready to wrap up, you clearly signal the end to your listener with finally. Finally, I came home and crashed on the couch. I cannot stress this enough. Mastering these sequence words is the ultimate key to sounding like a confident storyteller. They give your listener literal stepping stones to follow along effortlessly. Moving right along to Section 2, choosing the right tenses. This is the muscle of your story. So now that we have our sequence words forming that skeleton, we need to power them with verbs. This right here brilliantly illustrates a fundamental difference you need to master. Think about a standard daily habit. I wake up at 7 a.m. We use this simple present for our everyday routines, right? The stuff we do day in and day out. But if you're telling a story about a specific day that has already happened, you absolutely must shift to the simple past. I woke up at 6:30 today. And here's the magic. Your sequence words work perfectly with this shift. Instead of just making a general statement, you are suddenly moving past tense actions along a concrete timeline. First, I woke up at 6:30. Then, I ate a quick breakfast. You're actively pulling the listener into what happened today rather than what just happens every day. Now, what happens if your day isn't actually over yet? Because sometimes you're telling your story right in the middle of it. If someone asks what you're up to right now, you use the present continuous for right this very second. I am eating lunch. But if you want to connect a really recent past action to the present moment, you use the present perfect. Think of the phrase, "I have just arrived home." Words like already, just, and yet are super common here. You might say, "First, I went to the store, and I've just arrived home." See that? It adds immediate real-time context to your daily story, perfectly blending what happened earlier with exactly where you are right now. And every good daily story usually ends with a look at what's coming next. But there is a very subtle difference in how we talk about the future, and getting this right adds some fantastic nuance. If you have a solid, concrete plan, something you've really thought about and locked in, you emphasize that finality by using going to, like, I'm going to study tonight. Your mind is made up. But if you're making a quick, spontaneous decision in the moment, or just throwing out a prediction, you use will. I'll call you tonight, or I think it will rain. It's that slight little shift from a firm plan to a spontaneous thought that makes your conversational storytelling sound incredibly authentic. Let's move to section 3, time and frequency adverbs, or adding the details. A skeleton and muscles are great, sure, but adverbs add the actual rhythm and color to your story. When you explain your habits, you want to be precise. You can actually think of this mathematically. Always means literally 100% of the time. I always drink coffee in the morning. Usually drops that down to about 90%. Often sits around 70%. Sometimes is exactly 50-50. Occasionally is 30%. Rarely is a mere 10%. And never is absolute zero. I never skip breakfast. Dropping these frequency adverbs into your sentences instantly upgrades your listener's understanding of who you are. It turns a flat, boring statement into a rich, personal detail. And let's see how this builds out across the clock, because time expressions are exactly what anchor those sequence words we talked about earlier. If you say, first I exercise, well, that's a good start. But first I exercise early in the morning paints a much, much richer picture. You can seamlessly map your day from in the morning to at noon to in the evening to at night or before bed. Placing these expressions carefully throughout your narrative gives the person listening a clear, continuous sense of time passing. It literally makes them feel like they are moving through the day right alongside you. All right, now for section 4, linking ideas and verbs. Think of this as the glue of your story. Here's the thing. Even with perfect sequence words and dynamic verbs, your story can still sound a bit disjointed if you only use really short, choppy sentences. Like, I went home, I ate dinner. To sound truly fluent, you need this toolkit of linking words. Words like although, because, or while. You really don't need to overcomplicate it. These words simply take two separate thoughts and seamlessly merge them into one fluid, complex idea. They bridge the gap between your actions, making sure your listener is carried smoothly from one event to the next without any awkward, abrupt stops. So the crucial point here is just how much depth one tiny linking word can add. Consider this totally relatable example. I was tired, so I went to bed early. Without the word so, you basically just have two disconnected facts floating in space. But with it, you instantly provide a reason and a consequence. You've given the listener the why behind your action, making the story infinitely more relatable. You're no longer just reporting what happened. You're actually explaining your human experience. Which brings us to section 5, the perfect daily story. This is where we bring absolutely everything together, guys. The skeleton, the muscle, the details, and the glue. Just notice how the sequence words we focused on today literally drive this story forward. Imagine telling a friend, today I woke up at 6:30 in the morning. First, I brushed my teeth and took a shower. Then I had breakfast with my family. After that, I went to school. Do you notice how the simple past tenses, brushed, took, had, went, sit perfectly inside that framework of sequence words? We've established a really clear timeline. And then jumping to the end of the day to wrap it all up, finally, I went to bed at 10:30 because I wanted to get enough sleep for the next day. There is our sequence word, finally, capping off today. Our past tense verb, went, and our linking word, because, giving a solid reason. It's simple, it's highly structured, and it flows just beautifully from beginning to end. Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Fixing Common Storytelling Mistakes. Look, even great storytellers stumble sometimes, so let's polish your narrative by clearing up a few common grammatical bumps. When learning to tell your day's story, there are a couple of pitfalls I see all the time. For example, accidentally adding the verb to be where it simply doesn't belong, like saying, I am wake up at 7. The simple present is clean and direct. It's just I wake up at 7, period. Another major hurdle, irregular verbs in the past tense. People so often try to force an ed onto everything, saying things like, I goed to school. But go is irregular, so the correct form is, I went to school. And similarly, if you anchor your sentence with a time expression like yesterday, you have to commit to the past tense. It's not, yesterday I go home, it's yesterday I went home. Continuing with these common errors, when you're using the present perfect for a recent action, you have to remember that it requires the past participle. So instead of saying, I have eat breakfast, the polished version is, I have eaten breakfast. It's also super vital to watch how you form your negatives. For the third person singular, you need to shift away from she don't study to the correct form, she doesn't study. And lastly, you absolutely don't need the verb to be when using the simple past. Saying I was watched TV just adds unnecessary clutter to your sentence. Just rely on that strong, simple past verb to do the heavy lifting. I watch TV. And that brings us to the end of our storytelling framework. You now have the sequence words to build your skeleton, the right tenses to add the muscle, the adverbs for rich detail, and the linking words to hold the whole shebang together. So I'm going to leave you with this. What did you enjoy most about your day-to-day? And more importantly, now that you have this incredibly powerful framework in your back pocket, exactly how are you going to choose to tell your story? Take these tools, step out into the real world, and start talking about your day.